you ever wish your day wasn't dictated by your health? Are you tired of being tired all the time, or is pain holding you back from enjoying your time with your family? Would you like to manage your symptoms holistically, but you just don't know where to begin? I am so excited that you're here. This podcast will help you understand how natural remedies work so you can relieve your symptoms and live a fuller life. My name is Penny. I'm an occupational therapist, past pharmaceutical rep, a mom, and a wife with a strong faith, and for 25 years, I battled through debilitating Crohn's disease. I took all the medicine and did all the surgeries that stole so much time with my family, but never truly healed me. I finally realized if I was going to survive this disease, I needed to open my stubborn eyes to alternative solutions. I researched how perfectly our bodies work with plants and a lifestyle that made my health less of a burden to my family and aligned so beautifully with my faith and my medical training. If you are ready to reclaim your life with holistic options that are easy to implement as a busy mom and provide relief that lasts, this is the podcast for you. All right. Hello, Becoming Natural fans. This is Penny Sampler, your host of the Becoming Natural podcast. And tonight, I am so excited to have my friend Aubree Hendershot. I've been talking her up. She has graciously opened up her amazing facility in Mission, Kansas on Johnson Drive. If you're local, it's 5814 Johnson Drive. And this is where we are going to be having my launch party for the podcast, which is the official launch party, as well as the website and all the fun things on Thursday night. Of course, we have a snowstorm, between now and then, but we are fully confident that we're going to be able to make it back and through the snow to get here. But this is also my first interview podcast, and I have been so careful because I think there's an art to interview, but Aubree has been such a great friend, and I just want to give a little bit of history about Aubree. But we met, I'll never forget the day that we were met. We were sitting on the floor at our kids' school, and it was like instant, we just were drawn. And she told me that she was a DPT, and I was so excited because DPT means Doctor of Physical Therapy, and I'm an occupational therapist. So we just kind of hit it off from there. So I'm going to start off by getting just a little bit of background about you before we get into our discussion on lymphatic drainage is the discussion today. So tell me a little bit just about your background. Where'd you go to school, physical therapy school, all those things?
Yep. So I went to KU for undergrad, University of Kansas, go Jayhawks. So, and I was studying sports science with a pre-physical therapy emphasis. And I'm one of those rare breeds that knew back when I was in sixth grade. I had this strange fascination. I was a competitive gymnast, and I was really fascinated with bones and muscles and how our bodies work. And so that was definitely an easy path for me to choose. I know that that's not necessarily common to know that young. And then I continued on at KU Men's Center and went ahead and got my doctorate in physical therapy and entered out into the orthopedic realm. That was kind of, everybody wanted to do that, working with sports injuries and a lot of post-op people. And I spent the majority of my career as an orthopedic outpatient physical therapist.
Exactly what I did not want to be.
See, we complement each other.
Exactly. I was like, if I was going to do orthopedics, I would go to physical therapist. I like head injury. So that's awesome. Okay. So, and then you went on, for those of y'all who don't know, you have to get a doctorate in physical therapy. So that was, I'm assuming, at KU,
yep.
Correct? So she's officially Dr. Hendershot, if you would like to call her Dr. Hendershot.
Don't call me that.
So you have gone on from, I know you were director of a physical therapy clinic before I met you, and then you have opened up your own clinic here, which is amazing. So what led you into doing something on your own?
Yeah. So I joke it's like my corporate career back when I worked for other people. The last 5 years of that, I was actually director of rehabilitation at a couple different senior living centers. And I felt so blessed to be able to work with the population I never thought would be my thing. I fell in love with the seniors. Talk about a lost generation. One of the greatest generations, the stories. I really believe that they enriched my life, probably much greater than I ever did theirs. But during that time was COVID. And the one facility I was working at the time went on lockdown almost entirely for a year and a half. And knowing these people, I mean, they were almost like my grandparents, and seeing how detrimental the lockdown was. Family that used to visit them on the regular helped keep them in independent living. I just saw a lot of decline, and not just in a physical sense. But it was also a time I got to stand in the gap and be someone there. I mean, to think that some people never even had someone put a hand on their shoulder for weeks at a time, or when they were delivering meals to their room, I mean, they might not see a friendly face or have, just that chit chat back and forth.
Yes, nobody realized they were locked in their room.
Yeah.
It was very sad.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes the most exciting thing we would do is clean out the to-go boxes from the refrigerator that came from the dining room, right? But it was a really special time and very, very challenging for everyone. But what I found by the end of it was that the burnout was real. And I had promised myself when I went into physical therapy that if I felt that I was starting to get burnt out, because I had seen, unfortunately, too many therapists in that position, that I was going to remove myself from that situation, because the last thing that I wanted was to continue practicing just because it was there for me. And that's doing no one any favors. Definitely not the patients, and definitely not myself. I'm a mom with 2 young kids, and, I have a lot that I still need to give outside of work. So, that time was over in working at the senior living center, and really Radiant Wellness was born from that. I had been on a health journey myself and was discovering that modern medicine was failing, at least in my aspect. I sat in front of way too many doctors who couldn't help me. And so I was on a pursuit myself to find holistic answers for my autoimmune questions. And I felt very blessed that I was able to find a great naturopath. And anyway, all these moved me closer and closer down the line to starting my own clinic. And so about 6 months after I had left my job, I found this clinic and was able to kind of build the whole thing out, which was fun, and start from there. And it started out as a holistic physical therapy clinic, and I was doing strictly dry needling. I have an infrared sauna, myofascial work, a little bit more traditional physical therapy type things. So
I love that our commonality is we both were trained like specific hardcore medical model. Yeah, we both got autoimmune disease. Yeah, we both found our doctors who loved, my doctors were amazing, loved me dearly, and they admitted, like, we don't know what to do next, which led us down this road. Like, we found ourselves here.
Yeah.
Just from the lack of answers from our own doctors. So interesting. Okay, so let's dive into lymphatic drainage. I feel like lymphatic drainage is kind of like a trending topic these days. And I think that people either don't understand what it is or they misunderstand what it is. So just in a very, short summary before we go in and dive deep, what is lymphatic drainage?
So lymphatic drainage is utilizing, especially in the respect I do it. So I'm using my hands to manipulate the lymph collectors under the skin, as well as the lymph nodes, but I'm manually with my hands directing the lymph and moving it where I need it to go.
Got it. Mm-hmm. And so where in the body, like I always like to get anatomical, I think my listeners know that, but where in the body is the lymph system located?
Everywhere. So we have 3 sets of regional lymph nodes. So everything at some point will drain to those 3 sets. So cervical in the neck, axillary in the armpits, and inguinal in the groin. So those are the main things. Then we have lots of accessory lymph nodes. And then we have a network of collectors that sit under the skin. Think of them as our highway system. So lymph is going to move through those collectors, go through different accessory nodes, make it to their designated regional nodes, and then gets dumped back into the circulatory system at the termini under the collarbone.
Got it. So what's the purpose of all of that?
So the lymphatic system's the body's master janitor. So you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, it's your body's sewage system. Ew. I mean, none of this is necessarily a real sexy topic, but I think of it as more of a janitor because it's a very active system. To me, sewage system sounds very passive, like that's just where it leads to, but the janitor is always working. It's able to upregulate itself when it needs to, or be upregulated by manual techniques like with manual lymphatic drainage. So it is constantly trying to pick up waste, debris, toxins, other harmful substances or substances that are too big for our circulatory system to pick back up to get out of our body. The lymphatic system stands in the gap.
And then from the lymphatic system, where does it go in your body?
Yes. So when it comes back up and is dumped under the collarbones at the termini, it goes back into the venous system. And then that's where it's going to be...
venous meaning the veins.
The veins, yes. Then it's going to be... it's going to go through our main detox organs, or what we think of, liver and kidneys. It's going to be processed through those things. And then everything gets excreted out, bowel, bladder.
So... I love to detox. Like, I know that detox is kind of a term everybody uses, but because I've had such a health history of medicines and things like that, I'm always doing like the next greatest detox. I think anything can help you. So when people say that you don't want to do a detox until your pathways are open, is that what this means? So I would come to you if I wanted to open my pathways before I started a detox?
Absolutely. So I think of manual lymphatic drainage as a downstream detox pathway. I have an infrared sauna in my clinic, also ways to open up downstream detox pathways, albeit very different. But I like to think, a lot of people think, let's get nutrients in, so the good stuff in, and let's get the waste and bad stuff out. But really, we're kind of flipping it on its head with lymphatics. We believe that we need to get the waste and the bad stuff out in order to allow room and our bodies to be able to accept nutrients and good things.
Okay, I'm just going to say it. It's like being constipated. Like, you got to have that. You got to get it out so that you can get everything out.
Yes. And, our lymphatic system does pull off the intestines. So it actually is pulling, it's not just pulling waste all the time. It's pulling fatty acids, a bunch of different things to then be taken to the liver. So it's working in multiple different ways. But you're right. If we can't clear that out, not only do we feel crummy, but we really can't detox either.
Which explains why we have to put the liver out and all those things first.
Yeah.
We just have so many, as I've learned, so many toxins that we didn't have even 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We're so clogged.
Yeah.
So other reasons. So what if I feel fine?
Yeah.
Why do I need to come see you?
I'm a lymphatic specialist, so the answer to that is yes. Some people do a really good job of doing self-lymphatics at home. And for some people whose toxic bucket maybe isn't that full, that might be a perfectly acceptable solution for them. But a lot of people, even if just for the first time, to come in and see a certified manual lymphatic drainage specialist, and we're upregulating the entire system at once. So we are kind of encouraging everything. We're increasing the rate that those lymph collectors under the skin are contracting by sometimes 6 to 10-fold. So to upregulate your entire body all at once is really beneficial and powerful for a lot of people. And then if they don't have too many issues like lymph stagnation or, other underlying issues. So if you get an area that if you have swelling, like let's say your left ankle, a lot of times, unless it's something because you just sprained your ankle or some acute injury, right? We have lymph that isn't going to move very well. Thermography is a great way to see lymph stagnation, but also some people can feel it themselves. I can when I'm assessing people. But if the lymph is not moving in a certain area, and it could be for a multitude of causes, that's where it's stagnating. And a lot of times we need more help or direct intervention to help it move. But people who have issues like that, it makes sense for them to come see a lymph specialist more often. But if you do fine, we get you through the first initial evaluation, we get things moving, and you continue at home, then some people, I see them hit or miss as needed.
And I've heard you speak a lot to the point that you do post-surgical lymphatic drainage. So why, if you had any kind of surgery or, are you working out anesthesia? Or are you working out certain types of surgery, cosmetic, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We are moving anything. So especially if you've gone under anesthesia, this is a great opportunity to help the lymphatic system pick up any remnants and move it out of the body. But we've found in evidence, lots of research actually shows us that if I get someone in my clinic within 24 to 48 hours after any surgery, again, doctors do need to sign off on it, but we find that we're clearing out inflammatory factors. Mm-hmm. We are clearing out things that cause pain. We're decreasing the amount of bruising you have, so the discomfort, swelling, especially post-plastic surgery. The sooner you can get in, the more we're expediting the process of healing, and it can make a huge difference with people.
Okay, so this is where I think it's important to inject that you are a DPT and you have a very specific certification.
Right.
And that doctors are referring patients to you because they know of your qualifications, that this is not something that I would go see anybody post-surgery to see.
Right.
So,
and that's where so you can become a certified manual lymphatic drainage specialist or therapist or practitioner by doing an in-depth 5-day hands-on course. I personally am trained in the Vader method. Dr. Vader was pretty much the grandfather of manual lymphatics, and that was the route I have gone, and I believe it to be the best. It is the most backed by research, but it's also very specific on how you do it, because anything I do, I want to make sure I'm making the maximum benefit without doing any harm. So on social media, there's a lot of people claiming to do lymphatic drainage. And I will tell you, if it involves any sort of tools that cause pain, that is 100% not the right answer.
Like cutting your light open and letting it drain.
So definitely that's a misnomer. So nothing that we can see per se on the exterior is draining. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to, I know this is not a great thought to put in your head, but when it comes to post-surgical, especially post-plastic surgery, incision sites should never be reopening. Nothing should be actively draining from them. So if you go to someone, and unfortunately people wind up in my clinic after they've gone to someone like this, if someone is doing that, they should lose their license.
Barring like a specific drain. You're right. The site.
Yes, and that's for a surgical reason, and your doctor, nurse practitioner is administrating that.
Right.
But yeah, as far as the actual manual lymphatic drainage, we are not actively trying to drain anything on the exterior.
Correct.
Yeah.
Got it. Got to be clear on that. I've seen some pretty nasty things.
Yeah.
So
scary.
Yes, very scary. So, so obviously I have been a patient of Aubree and it was amazing. But if you were a first timer and you're coming to see you, what would you expect about your experience here?
It should be really relaxing, right? So personally in my clinic, I go through past medical history. We want to make sure you're a good candidate. Because manually manipulating the lymphatic system can be so powerful, I want to make sure there's nothing contraindicating us doing that. So something that would put a red flag for me is if you have some sort of issue with fluid balance, such as kidney failure, congestive heart failure, anything like that, right? A fluid regulation. I don't want to be overloading the systems, right? Other thing, active infection. We don't want to do that. Our body needs to be able to handle that. I will see you after. So those are really the ones, and I definitely don't want to see you if you have any sort of blood clotting active blood clotting like a DVT. And then acute bronchitis is another one. I don't want to see it because I don't want to cause bronchospasming. So anyway, we spend time, we go through past medical history. I want to know what your goals are. But then at least 1 hour, so 60 minutes hands-on, and I work through the whole body. So I start head, neck, and face. We drain the sinus cavities. We go through all the regional nodes. I do arms, legs, deep lymphatics. I pair it with deep breathing, and we're putting pressure in the abdomen. I even have you flip when we do the back of your torso, the back of your head. So I want to upregulate that entire system. What I will say is within the first 72 hours, because this can be so powerful, you could have a change in bowel or bladder habits. So I say, don't freak out if it's a change in frequency, smell, color. Those can all be considered normal. I will say on the flip hand, if nothing changes, that doesn't mean it's not working. All our bodies are very different, right? And some of us are more sensitive than others. Another thing is if you come to me with sinus allergies, congestion, you most likely will feel it draining sometimes while you're still laying on the table. So I always give people a heads up. And with that one, sometimes it can get worse the first 12 hours. And then generally speaking, after that 12 hours, it is considerably better. But it does have to drain, and that is where you will see stuff. People be blowing their nose a lot more, feeling it kind of running down their throat, that sort of thing. All considered normal if you have congestion.
I have to say, the first time I came to see you, I just wanted to do it because I didn't know what lymphatic drainage was, and I always looking for a way to detox. And I don't think that I really felt anything miraculous the next day, but I've also done a lot of detoxing, so I feel like I had kind of prepped. One time I came to see you, and I call it Yellow Pollen Day. It was like the day that yellow pollen set in, and I had never had allergies until I moved to Kansas City, and Lord have mercy. I've heard, I need to confirm this rumor, but I've heard that there is a ragweed farm west of here somewhere, and it all blows in. But it was the day, and I woke up with the worst sinus headache, because I don't have blowing of the nose or sneezes. It's just sinus headache, and it was my appointment day, and I almost thought about canceling because my head hurt so bad. And I sat on that table and you started working on my head and neck. And while we're talking, because I talk, she does make it relaxing. I'm just chitty-chatting. But I literally started feeling it all the way down my throat. It was amazing. And that was my aha moment. Like, it is really pushing stuff down. And hearing me congested now, I'm like, maybe I should hop over in that room real quick. But the other interesting thing I wanted to brag on Aubree a little bit too, just for how professional she is, that y'all know that I've had multiple abdominal surgeries and all the things. And I had told her a little bit about my history, but she's working on the deep breathing, which I can't stand. I think I said this to you once before. I count deep breathing kind of like having to do Kegel exercises. Like, they give me anxiety because I have so much scar tissue. And I was laying on my back and she was trying to like press on my stomach, and she's like, holy Hannah girl, she's like, you've got some major scar tissue in there. So she really is, you know what you're doing. And I was like, yeah, there's a little bit of that, but then trying to deep breathe through that scar tissue and release it is a lot of my issue as well. So
yeah, and the important thing about deep breathing is that our lymphatic system has no pump.
Right.
So it's not like your heart and the circulatory system where that heart is pumping, pushing through the arteries. Our lymphatic system is really an open system. So the rise and fall, that drop of the diaphragm acts almost like a suction, which becomes really important, especially when you think lymph from the feet has to travel all the way up the legs, be processed by the inguinal nodes at the groin, then be pumped the deep lymphatics in the abdomen and wind up all the way under the collarbones. Like, that's a long way to go. And so the more people can work on deep breathing, because let's be honest, no one ever taught us how to breathe, right? And most of us are chest breathers. That rib cage is opening and closing versus that nice drop, that rise and fall of the belly that happens when we do a really deep breathing technique. I will say yogis, so people who practice yoga, and those who are in or previously been in choir, those are my best deep breathers, hands down. But like Penny, in your case, if we have abdominal scarring or even incision sites, let's say from C-sections or abdominal surgeries, if that has scarred down to the tissue below it, sometimes then, and that's where a good physical therapist, chiropractor, etc., can help break up some of that scar tissue, because anatomically speaking, we need that to free up to be able to take the deep breaths. But also when we have incisions, we cut through the lymph collectors. And the beautiful part of our lymphatic system, one of the many, is that our collectors can actually reroute. So that lymphatic system can reroute around incisions.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It can actually, there's a whole kind of backup system that can be activated too, and use alternate, side streets instead of the main highways. I mean, it's really unbelievable, but scar tissue can hinder this. So addressing scar tissue, even if it's old, really makes a lot of sense.
Amazing. It never ceases to amaze me the miracle that our bodies are, and that we know how to heal. Like, our bodies innately know how to heal. I was going to say one more comment that I sent one of my very dear friends to you before, and she had her first lymphatic drainage, and she called me the next day, and she's in shorter form, but she says she felt awful. And she said, but listen, Penny, I think it's the good kind of awful. Like, I think that it worked all the stuff that needed to get out into my system, and now I am detoxing. So it's amazing the different ways that everybody responds, because you said some are more sensitive, some have done more detox before, some have never done detox, all the things. So there's all different ways you can feel. But I'm one that, like, if I feel bad, I'm like, yes, like, that's that much more out of my system. So she definitely felt it the next day, but she recognized that that was a good thing to be feeling bad.
Yeah, and it's always nice when we can kind of walk that fine line of, some detox or, Herx reaction is kind of what we call that. So that might be the headache, the kind of flu-like symptoms, maybe some achy joint types of things. It depends on the person. Often I tell people, hey, if you're feeling any of this, give me a call. I utilize in the clinic a really great binder. It's got 7 unique other binders wrapped into it, so it's super selective. It's not going to interfere with other herbals, those types of things.
Tell me what a binder does.
A binder is going to sit like a catcher's mitt in the colon. So if you think about us detoxing, especially as things are being processed by the liver, that bile and everything that's being pulled is going to have to go through the digestive system to be excreted. So a good binder, a cheap one, let's say, is activated charcoal. Charcoal's fine in the short term, but it's not selective. It's going to grab everything good and bad. So it's definitely not one you want to use very often, because it will pull the things that we need, like nutrients and vitamins and minerals. But a good selective binder, like the one I use in my clinic, it's called Gut Clear by Cellular Solutions. It is going to sit and lie in wait in the gut. And as those toxins are being pulled, it's going to grab onto them and make sure that they're not reabsorbed.
Yeah.
Because when we really get those bad detox symptoms, it's not so much that we're pulling toxins out as moving them around, and that binder is going to help grab them and make sure that they get out of the body.
I was going to ask that next. If things get reabsorbed, like, you don't want to go through all of that misery,
right,
if it's miserable, and then reabsorb it all. So that binder is almost necessary, especially if it's the first time that you're doing it.
Exactly.
Take that binder to slow it down, I guess, slow down those negative feelings.
Yeah.
So how often, it sounds like everybody's variable, but do you think someone like me, should I come once a year, once a quarter? If I want to just maintain, what's the difference between maintenance, I guess, after you've kind of worked through whatever your issue is? How often should someone come if they want to maintain?
Yeah. I would say it depends on how much you're willing to do at home. So with that self-lymphatic drainage, when someone comes to me for the first time, I love when they can follow it up 2 to 3 weeks later, especially if we know that they've got an issue that we're trying to work on. it just kind of piggybacks off the benefits that we're getting. And then if someone's able to do it at home, great, wonderful. A lot of people check in with me. Okay, I love when they come in. So if you think of lymphatic drainage, it is a huge immune system boost because our lymphatic system is a lot of our first line of defense, those lymph nodes. So I tell people, when you feel like you're starting to get sick, that's when I want you in my clinic. And most people are like, oh no, surely that's not right. I said, no, that is right. Now, in reality, I usually see people on the flip side where they're like, I've had a cold or this lagging, cough or runny nose for the past 4 to 5 weeks. So then they come see me and we get the rest of that out. So really, I love seeing you on the beginning in let's get the immune system geared up to fight this fight, because that's one of its big jobs. And then we don't end up with a full-blown illness versus, although it still helps, the flip side. And I will, a side note is that's how I actually got into lymphatics in my clinic. People were coming in to see me for, low back pain, sore shoulders. And then they were like, I kept noticing this similar theme of, oh, and by the way, I've had this cold that's lasted X number of weeks. And when I said to them, that's not normal, they kind of look at me funny and be like, huh, you're right. And that kind of led me down that rabbit hole of lymphatics, because I'm like, what are we missing here? Especially after COVID, a lot of people's immune systems had tanked a lot because they weren't being exposed to things. And then all of a sudden we go back and are exposed to many things, our immune system got overwhelmed. And so I just did a deep dive into lymphatics because I'm like, there's got to be something we're missing. And the truth is most of the medical community has missed it. There's not a lot of education that goes on in men's schools or other, even in physical therapy school, other than maybe a short lecture that didn't get much airtime. People aren't talking about the lymphatic system like they are other systems.
Well, we have this threshold. So, maybe I have allergies and then I'm getting a cold and then I have a sore knee, and there's only so many little ATP energies that can go throughout our body to do its healing.
Yeah.
So that cold's going to lag because maybe it ranks lower in importance of what your body needs to heal.
Yeah.
And I talked a little bit about that and when I was talking about the Candida diet, but that your body needs to eat as clean as possible in order to allow that energy to go throughout your body and heal what needs to be healed. But that makes sense when you have these patients with injuries that then have these lagging symptoms because it's not addressing what the body doesn't think is the most important priority.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
And I guess back to your question though, like how often? So there are people that I have in my clinic who come in every other week. They know themselves. They know that they're not going to do any sort of lymphatic work at home. And this is just part of their wellness routine. And then I have people who see me maybe a little less regularly, every 4 to 6 weeks. And then I have people who are like, okay, allergy season is coming. Now's the time. Yeah. And you raised your hand. Now's the time to get in there and let's just keep things moving. Because the good news, if we can keep things moving, especially with allergies, we're keeping things from like sinus infections from happening, right? So it's really there. It's a boost when you need it.
I bet it'd be interesting to see your patients that come on the regular, how much healthier they stay compared to others.
That's where thermography is a really cool tool. One of my patients, the one that comes every other week, she was able to do a baseline thermography when we had just started and then did it about a year later. It was really fascinating. Really neat to see because the lymph stagnation shows up as bright red. And a year later, all the things, especially that we had focused on, had changed dramatically. So that's a really neat tool because otherwise we can't visualize in that sense the lymphatic system unless, I'm assessing hands-on, but that's different. And most people can't feel that unless you've been trained to do so.
I love thermography too, and that is definitely an episode for the future because it's fascinating how much it helps us. So one of my favorite things that I always think about when I'm trying to think logically, I have a standard poodle that you probably know about, but poodles require a lot of grooming, chronic ear infections. I'm like, why did God do this? Like, why did he make these big old ears to give them ear infections? Like, I'm thinking, what if a poodle had to live in the wild? How could they survive? So why are we in a situation where we require lymphatic drainages, or why does it help us so much? Like, what did cavemen do? Why didn't they have, or did they, who knows? Did they have gouache tools? They probably did. But why do we feel like we need it? And because I know we need it because it helps me and I feel the difference. So what's the difference? Why do you think that we need it now versus maybe years ago?
The bottom line is we're exposed to so much more than we were even 50 years ago.
Yeah.
If we look at what's in our water, how our food is being ultra processed, right? Or even just airborne toxins. I like to finally walk the line between, doom and gloom and hope, because I do believe that there's a lot of hope out there, but we have to be really careful. And I think educating ourselves, which is what you do on your podcast, of ways that we can make small changes, tweaks to decrease our toxic burden, our exposure to these things. But our bodies, just while they were meant to heal, when we're being bombarded from every direction, these different toxins, chemicals. I mean, if you look at an ingredient list, even for our laundry soap, our bodies just weren't intended to have to process this many synthetic things. And so that's where lymphatic drainage can be so powerful to help. But really, we can't out-detox a toxic lifestyle.
Right.
That's really the bottom line. So if I'd be remiss to say that lymphatic drainage will solve all these problems if we continue to not pay attention to what we put in and on us. Even the self-care products we use. So,
oh yeah, I'm a big fan. I mean, I feel amazing as I go one by one. And I just think this is one more tool in our tool belt. Just like I say, like, you don't have to do everything all at once. Don't freak out and throw out everything in your pantry or in your bathroom, one step at a time. And as you feel yourself improving day by day, it's amazing how much better we feel, because I love how you said you can't outrun a toxic environment. I mean, we're going to be encountering toxins no matter where we are, but that's why we have a liver. I mean, our liver is there for that purpose, but we're just encountering so many toxins that we just need to clean out that constipation and move everything through, which allows our body to work better to keep ourselves healthy. So it does its job that it's created to do.
Yeah.
So this was so awesome. Thank you. How can, if someone's local to Kansas City, let's tell them how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So you can pop on my website, radiantwellnesskc.com.
And I'll put that in the show notes.
Thanks. So that's if you're local. If you're not local, though, you can find me at LymphDoc. All one word, LymphDoc,
LYMPH,
yep, DOC, on both TikTok and Instagram. And there's some great resources, I will say. So it's always great when you can find a local certified manual lymphatic drainage therapist. But if that's just not in the cards for you, maybe you don't have one locally you can find that you trust, or, that is associated with the cost, but you can pop on my social media and linked in my bio. You can get a free guide to self-lymphatic drainage. It's a 9-page PDF that'll be emailed to you, and it's got pictures and instructions and arrows of how to do it. I think everyone should be able to have access to this information and be able to feel like they can do even just the simplest primary sequence every day and feel good about that they're doing it properly.
Awesome. Freebies. We love freebies.
Yeah.
So that's in your profile in both TikTok and Instagram.
Yep.
Awesome. That's Amazing. And then you also have a course.
Yeah. So I do an online course as well. It's over 70 minutes of videos and talks about the lymphatic system. So this is for the people who want to get more in depth, or maybe they have a specific thing that they want to be working on, a specific body part. I show you everything, stimulating lymph nodes, the strokes that you'll use. Maybe it's for your arm or for your face. So if you really want to know that you're doing it correctly, you would have access to this online course. This is also linked in my bio to purchase. And right now it's on an introductory price. So it's just a great resource that you can go back and look at and make sure you're doing things correctly.
It's great. Like to have someone show you, because sometimes you could be like rubbing your arm and you're like, I mean, am I going the right way? Am I in the right location? That's how I felt the first time. I was like, she told me to rub it like this. But anyway, thank you so much. I don't want to forget to remind everybody that Aubree has, graciously offered to host our official. So obviously the podcast, this is, I think, episode 21, which is crazy. But it's kind of been a soft launch because I was still learning audio, all the things. So she graciously offered to have a launch event for us. So it'll be this Thursday night at 5814 Johnson Drive in Mission, Kansas from 5 to 7. Come and go. But what's really fun is we have between us, we have lots of networks of natural homeopathic type people, hippies like us, that have either offered to, for the first 30 people that come, we have free goodie bags, thank you, that we're giving out. And then we are also offering a raffle at the end of the night. And that raffle is filling up fast with some really cool stuff that we think is just kind of the way to begin getting healthy, kind of a starter pack type stuff. And it's still building, but it does not matter if you're local to Kansas City or not. Episode 20, which is right before this, I went into detail about different ways that you can get entries into the raffle. And it's easy things like following LymphDoc on TikTok and following LymphDoc on, Radiant Wellness KC on Instagram, and following my podcast or writing a review. There's like a list, and it's a checklist. I made it really easy. I tried to make it really easy, but anybody can do that. Your friends, your family, and we will add more and more entries into the raffle for that. So if you're in the contiguous United States, I don't know if I can mail it internationally. If you win, then we will mail you that amazing gift basket. But there's something that is just local for Kansas City too that Aubree is offering that I think is huge, that I want to make sure everybody knows is going to be in the giveaway as well. Yeah, I want to say.
Yeah, a 3-pack of infrared sauna sessions. Oh, so I have a sunlight and sauna here that I love. Side note, don't utilize sauna after manual lymphatic drainage. Unfortunately, lots of heat like that doesn't go well with lymphatics, but that's a whole nother ball of wax. But it can be utilized outside. But a 3-pack, my sunlight and sauna has mid, near, and far infrared, which is just a ton of different benefits, kind of hitting detox from all different angles. Also lots of great anti-aging and relaxation benefits.
I mean, for me, it's literally just sitting still for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it could be doing whatever it's doing, but just to force me to sit still is amazing. So that's really exciting as well. So we hope that y'all can join us if you're local. If you're not local, we still want you to have a way to enter into this amazing raffle. And thank you so much for putting up with us, learning, being with me on my first interview podcast. I hope to have many more in it. We have a few more topics that we could go into depth on and interview in the future. You're a wealth of information. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. See you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, hit that follow button, leave a 5-star review if you're so willing, and help spread the message of Becoming Natural by sharing it with a friend. Check out the resources in the show notes and join the email list to stay on top of all the latest and greatest happenings at Becoming Natural as we roll out exciting new things while we grow. Until next time, take those baby steps to a more natural life and always give yourself grace. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. See you next week.